G'day guys, Mark from the Hunters Campfire podcast. Even though it's early days, we've already got some great inquiries about where to hunt, how to hunt, and of course gear. So to help you along the journey, we've decided to share some of our knowledge with you through a series of lessons learned videos. To kick things off, I'm going to talk to you tonight about my experiences with spotting scopes and binoculars. So let's dive right into it and have a look at spotting scopes. Okay, so on the test bench, I've got two of my own spotting scopes. I've got a small Campfire spotting scope with an angled eyepiece and a much larger Swarovski spotting scope with a straight eyepiece. So let's look at the Campfire first. So as you can see, it's a very small, compact spotting scope. Very small front objective lens, pretty simple layout, focus control, and like most spotting scopes, the zoom control is in the eyepiece. This is a 20 to 40 zoom. It literally weighs in the hundreds of grams. This is very much a one-handed spotting scope. Also very, very compact. This is really, really good if you're on the move and you're wanting to stop, glass, take a rest, see what's happening and move on. It's not so good if you're going to sit for long periods of time because it is a bit too compact and you tend to have to kind of crowd around it. But if you're spotting on the move, this is really a good option. Combined with a lightweight tripod, and by the way, the lightweight tripod I have is a Vanguard, and it's currently holding up the video camera here. Those two together give you a huge range of glassing options whilst on the move and hunting. So at the other end of the scale is my Swarovski spotting scope. Now yes, this is certainly the other end of the scale in terms of cost, and people ask me, are Swarovski scopes worth it? And I say, they're never worth it until you buy them, and then you realize they're worth every cent. It's really hard to describe if you haven't used their gear, the optical clarity that you're going to get out of this scope, but it's truly fantastic. As I said, it's very, very difficult for me to explain it, but if you use them, you'll know what I'm talking about. So it's a straight eyepiece, 20 to 60 zoom, very big focal ring, 65mm front lens, even comes with this well designed and quite expensive, by the way, cover that stays on the scope all the time simply to protect it. Fantastic in the field. Not so good if you're moving around. It weighs a lot. It's not light. There's no two ways about that, and it's not particularly small. But if you're in a more static position, this is really the scope that I go to. Now, on this particular scope, I went the straight eyepiece because that simply reflects the type of observation I'm using this scope for. I'm not using this to look up in an alpine setting. I'm using this often to look across gullies where I might be at a similar level, or really to look along further away into a field. So the straight eyepiece in this instance is actually a benefit for me when using this scope. So there we have two types of scopes. A more compact, lightweight, still very, very effective, and also a lot easier to invest in, small spotting scope by Campfire, which will give you a fair amount of grunt for its size. As I said, it's a 20 by 40. You can use this all day, every day. You can keep it handy. You can stop. You can even use this really without a tripod, but I find it's better with a tripod. So this is your on the move. I want to check out an area, and with the angled eyepiece, if you're at the base of a hill, you can check into the hill and be quite comfortable in the seating position. And if you're really going to do some heavy lifting in terms of the glassing, you've got your option here, which is Swarovski. Now, I'm not saying that Swarovski is the only brand, but I'll readily admit to you that you do get what you pay for when it comes to this type of glass. So let's look at binoculars. Like my spotting scopes, over the years I've purchased a number of types of binoculars for different applications. It's taken me a while to figure that out. It's not something that I immediately came to, and there's been a bit of trial and error along the way. So really, you're benefiting from my spending habits. And to start that, then, are these lovely little GPO 8x32s.
G'day guys. Whilst we were editing the video, Ian made a really good point, that was, what's with all these numbers, for instance 8x32, and really why should I care? So to explain, let's look at these GPO binoculars. You'll see that they're listed as 8x32. Now generally the first number, the 8, refers to the magnification. So these are 8 power binoculars. Spotting scopes often have a variable number, for instance between 20 to 60 or 20 to 40, which means they have a variable magnification range. Generally, binoculars have a fixed magnification range. The 32 refers to the diameter of the front lens or objective. So that's how you get that number. So a 10 by 42 means a 10 power binocular with a 42 front objective. Now, why should I care? Well, the higher the magnification number, the larger the object will appear to your eye when you're looking at it, the closer it'll appear to you, and more importantly, the more clarity you'll get when you're looking at it. With a larger front objective, you're going to capture more light, so you're going to get better optical clarity. There is a payoff though. It's generally considered that once you get around to 10 range in binoculars, they become harder for you to hold over the longer period of time, because all those tiny little movements in your body get magnified while you're looking through the objective, when you're looking through the binoculars. In terms of objective, obviously a bigger objective lets in more light, but since they're made of glass, a bigger objective is by its very nature heavier. So the body of the binoculars has to be larger. So bigger objective, heavier binoculars. So you've got to carry those things. That's why through the video I present a range of binoculars in sizes, because to me they should, like everything else, fit the application. Hope that clears it up, and back to the video.
These are actually one of my more recent purchases, and they're at 8x32, which means they're not, optically they're not a particularly powerful set of binoculars, but what I use these for is when I'm traveling. These are my traveling hunting binoculars. When I travel overseas to hunt, often I don't take much gear. I only take clothes and a bit of personal gear like binoculars, and I tend to borrow gear or rent gear when I'm overseas. I do that simply to avoid the issues with traveling with firearms. But I like to have my own glass, and I got these particular binoculars for that very reason. These are being used twice now hunting deer in England, and really lightweight, packed down to nothing, come with a great protective case, very, very easy to use. Now look, I have used these while hunting in Australia. If you're doing the kind of hunting where you might be hunting out of a vehicle and you're getting out and you're doing a bit of walking or exploring, these things are really, good enough for that type of activity. They're not obviously for glassing for long periods of time or at great distance, but up close work where you might be moving, stopping, jumping back in a truck, moving, stopping again, they really do the trick. So you don't necessarily need the biggest binoculars in town, but it's about finding the right size for the application. Moving up to a larger set of binoculars. These are a set of Leupold Mojaves, I think they are. These are one of my older sets of binoculars, and if you won't be able to see them, but one of the barrels has got a ding in it. The eyepieces are a bit gritty. These are well used and maybe a little bit abused over the years. They currently live in my ute, and so these are the binoculars that are sitting under the steering wheel on the parcel tray. So if you're like me, you drive past a paddock or a field or something like that, you might want to stop and have a quick look to see what's around. That's where these come in handy. They weren't intended for that use. They were very much binoculars that I hunted with for a number of years. They're 10 by 42s, and to be honest, I found that in this particular model, the 10 power was a little bit too much in terms of eye strain. They're great for quick observations, but after a while I found they were a little bit too much on my eyes, and I used to get that, basically eye strain. So from these, I decided to upgrade to a set of Leica binoculars. Now these are 8 by 42s, and without a doubt these are one of the best set of binoculars I've ever owned. They have done lots of work and they are a pleasure to use. No eye strain, exceptional clarity, great field of depth and field of view, easily adjustable, and also very well to balance adjust. So you can get these really well balanced for the differences between your eyes. And if you're like me and you're no longer in your 30s and you're in your 50s, your eyesight's not as good as it used to be. So being able to balance the binoculars to suit your particular eye style and your particular eyesight is really, really handy. So that's stepping up. Not as expensive as the equivalent Swarovski binoculars, but certainly in that price range, and a fine investment. They'll last forever. Which brings me to my latest pair. Now, the reason we know these are my latest pair is because they live in the chest rig, which, whilst it's not a piece of optical equipment, to me the chest rig is a fantastic idea if you hunt on the move. Having your binoculars on your chest in a comfortable rig is just such a smart idea. So in the chest rig we have my latest set of binoculars, which are Steiner HX 10 by 42. Yes, went back to a 10 by 42. There's some logic behind that. Put these down and let you know. So why did I go back to a 10 by 42? Well, where I've been hunting for the last 18 months, it's not a particularly big block, and I found that the spotting scope was actually not so useful. But I wanted something a little bit more in terms of magnification than the 8s. So I started shopping around for another pair of 10s. What I found with the Steiner is not only do you get very, very good glass, but you get it at a very good price. And for whatever reason, I don't get eye strain with the Steiner 10s as I do with the Leupold 10s. So they just are a more comfortable set of binoculars for me to carry, certainly, and more comfortable set of binoculars for me to use over the longer period. Again, HD glass, German quality, great adjustable or adjustments, very fine. You can really dial these in to a certain range. Steiner use these eye caps. I find with the eye caps, I do use the eye caps. How I use them is this: if I'm walking and they're in the chest rig, I usually flip the eye caps down, and so I can pop the chest rig open, have a quick look, and put them back down. If I'm going to be static for a little while, that's when I bring the eye caps into play. I'll get them right, and so these just sit so much more comfortably on my eyes than the older loopholes when it comes to that longer term observation. The other thing I really like about Steiners, and it's a funny thing to say, but it just shows a bit of thinking, is that instead of having the old loop and buckle style connector, they simply have this push-in connector. So there is so much easier to connect and disconnect to the binocular harness. Speaking of the binocular harness, the reason why I went this particular model, which I think is the marsupial gear, is it's actually small and compact. I don't like the larger style binocular harnesses. This one's basically carries the binoculars, carries a wind checker, and with the addition of this extra case, carries a very simple Nikon rangefinder, and that's about it for me. That's all I need for a day hunting in the field. So there we go. We've got some 8x32s, which are great for traveling. We've got some older American 10x42s, which are certainly no slouch, and will see you in good stead for a number of years. We step up a couple of levels to Leica 8x42s, and most recently the Steiner 10x42s. So that's about it for my binoculars and spotting scopes. Hope you got something out of it. Again, any questions, comments, or observations, please let me know and we'll try to help you out. Speak again soon.